Right, hello, this is Laura here, and I'm getting ready for the broadcast related to the online learning MOOC, Get Started with Online Learning. I'm here on my own tonight after the disaster of last night, but I hope that my colleague Jonathan Hughes will also be able to join me at some point. Hopefully, as you join me, you will have options to send questions in to me. You should see that on the right hand of your screen. You may need to look on the left hand side to see a little Q&A tab, in which case click on that and you should be able to send me questions. I've also got the questions that you sent the other day, so I will be working my way through those. So just in this moment I'm just checking. We've got one or two viewers joining us, so welcome to this Get Started with Online Learning session. My name's Laura Hills, I'm the educator of the course, and hopefully I'll be joined by Jonathan Hughes. And we've already had someone saying hello, Laura, so hello from me. And as questions come through, I should be sort of clicking them to say that I'm answering them at a time. So it's the first time I've done this, so we'll see how it goes. I'll just pick up my questions here. And what I'll do is I'll just start going through these. So we thought we'd start with starting with, are there topics or subjects which are best dealt with in an online setting and others that aren't? Or is the technology so good nowadays that we can cover all these, any sort of topic? I would say that as technology develops, then yes, things are getting much, much better than they used to be. And as you can see, say, from the Open Science Laboratory, that a lot of things now can be done to either replicate what goes on in real life, or at least give students and learners some idea of what goes on. But as you can also see from the Online Science Laboratory, it's not exactly the same as it is in real life. So I suppose the answer is yes and no. We can do a lot more than we used to, and as technology develops, we can do even more. But I suppose there are some things that we can't do quite as well, or that don't work quite as well, or perhaps we need to do in conjunction with real life experience. And we only find that out by trying. So I hope that answers your question. I'll move on to the next question now. And I've put these into sort of things. So the next thing relates to the purpose of the course and who's it for. So there's a question here which relates to someone who wants to study English, and particularly things like grammar and literature. And is this a suitable course for them? I suppose the first thing to say is this is not specifically a course for students of English as a second language. The material isn't particularly difficult to access if you do speak English as a second language, but it's not designed for you. And there are some courses out there. So if you look, for example, on the MOOC list, which you can find via Google, you'll be able to find some courses there for English language. And we also have a course via the Open University's OpenLearn site, which is an English language course as well. But studying this course or learning on this course is, it's going to help you with your English, but it's not really designed for you. The next question is online learning a beneficial pursuit for people with mental health or sort of disorders? And the Open University has a long track record of supporting students with mental health difficulties. And so we do try quite hard to support those students. In relation to this course, because of the sheer number of students we have, and because we do not have dedicated tutors, then it's much more difficult to support these students. And we can't adapt it for such students either. So I say on this course, it may be beneficial because you're learning things, you're able to communicate with other students, but it won't be as tailored for you as the experience you might get, say, if you are registered on a formal online learning course. So again, I hope that answers your question. We've just had a question coming in, so I'll take this now. So it says, is there a program or such person who writes the material for online learning? Well, I'm one of the authors, so I hope that answers your question. And most of us work at the Open University, certainly on this MOOC. My colleague Jonathan and I work at the Open University, and we training in providing materials in an online setting for our students. And then what we did was we transferred some of those skills for writing online, you know, for this particular MOOC. So I'll just select that. Okay, so that's Maggie. Thank you, Maggie. I'll move to the next question, which is, what are the important things to carry out if you are a total beginner to these sorts of courses? So the answer to that one really is that I think you should give everything a go. If you're not very familiar, particularly with online learning, then have a try. I think things will take longer. So, for example, the Chinese app, some students have problems downloading that. I know it wasn't suitable for everyone. And some of the sort of manipulation of the science laboratory were quite difficult, particularly if you're not used to doing things in an online environment. But generally, the subject matter is designed to be quite accessible for you. So you don't need to be sort of, you know, very in online learning in terms of the subject, but it probably helps if you've had some experience before. But if you haven't, then just take it slowly and things will come, you know, sort of as you try them. So that covers the issues around the purpose of the course and who it's for. I just realised I should have mentioned that we're going to have this session for about half an hour. So we'll finish at around 7:30. So I hope that gives me enough time to get through all the questions. I'm sure it will. And do send questions as you find them. So the next question is about using this course in your career. So one of the questions says, will I get any sort of certificate of participation for completing this course, and do I have to pay for it? So the answer to both of those questions is yes. On this particular MOOC, participation is free, but if you wish to get a certificate of participation, then you will have to pay for it. And details of that are available on the on the Future platform. So there are other courses, if you find them, you know, offered by MOOC providers, which are free to do, or which have a free statement of participation, and there are others which are paid. So you need to have a look and see what the sort of the different MOOCs offer, whether you need to pay for things or not. The next person says, can we mention if we took a course on a MOOC, even if we don't have a statement of participation? And I suppose the answer to that is yes, you can say that you've done this. I suppose it's more difficult to provide evidence of that you've done it if you don't have a statement of participation. But you can still sort of talk about the experience of doing it, what you gained from it. So there's nothing to stop you doing that on your CV. We've just had another question coming in. Oh, there we go. So we've got Jonathan coming in. He can't join us, unfortunately. I think more technology is having a problem. He says, but he can see the answers. So thank you, Jonathan. And I'm glad that it's me, even in sit rather than reality at the moment. So we're just looking at using the MOOC in your career. So another question was, is the certificate of participation valid in other countries? So the person asked specifically, is it valid in Spain? And I can't really answer that question. I think at the moment, because these aren't registered courses that students are doing, such as you'd find in a sort of a normal university, even an online university, then I would say probably not. But it is worth asking your employer if they recognise it, and you can still put it on your CV as a previous person asked. And the final question related to career is, are online qualifications as valid and desirable by institutions as employers as non-online studies? I think that depends on what you mean by online study. So in relation to things like MOOCs, where students can read without showing their previous qualifications, when we don't necessarily know exactly who anyone is, then they're not considered as equal to sort of formal courses. However, if you happen to sign up and register with a sort of standard online university, such as the Open University, then yes, they are considered equal to any other qualification you might find. So I hope that answers your question. And I've just seen here that Jonathan's just answered one of the questions. So hopefully you can see that, saying that it's the educators who wrote the course in this case, and we're also moderating. So we're sort of involved in every aspect of this course. So I'll just move on to the next questions, which are about structuring your learning and finding the time to learn. So one person here says, how long do you need to take to do the course? And actually they find it takes them longer than the time suggested. And is it possible to skip exercises and come back to them later? Yes, of course. The course structured often, they do go in a particular order. So if you do skip and come back, you may find you've missed something that's important for later on. So do be cautious about it. But there's no reason why you can't do things a little slower than other students. So I hope that's something that you can do. So the next one here is, I think that for me, the greatest challenge will be to schedule the time I'm spending on learning activities so that they don't take up all her free time. And are there any tools to help? And a related question, is there a good and useful planner for online study? I think that's quite a difficult question to ask. There are lots more tools now available, such as online calendars, that people can use to schedule the time they have. And certainly if you register for formal online study, there will often be a calendar that you can see online, and it will indicate what part of a particular course you're meant to be studying at that moment in time, when any assessment comes up, and that sort of thing. So I'm just coming up for the next one here. And this relates to communicating with tutors and other learners. And this is something that quite a lot of you have raised in questions. So one of them is, I'd like to know how to use a social network for the courses. I'm not keen on Facebook and hesitate to register, but it seems a valuable tool for online learning. Could you please give some advice? Well, I personally don't use Facebook for learning, but an awful lot of people do. And certainly at the Open University, although we have forums, which are part of the Open University, a lot of students actually also sign up for Facebook and can communicate with other students informally. So I think it's up to you. You don't need to use Facebook. Most online universities will have some form of forum, such as you've been using for the comments on this particular course. And it can be really good to share practice with other students, but you don't need to if you don't want to. So don't feel obliged. If you don't fancy it, don't do it. I'm checking the time now, we're about 7:10, so we're doing well. The next question is, I'd like to know how to participate and learn from the discussions and feel part of interactive learning. And they go on to say that they've tried this on a number of online courses on the MOOCs, and they haven't really felt this. And in fact, they've been overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. I think that is very difficult. If you can't see people and you're only interacting in terms of looking at the comments, and there are literally hundreds of comments, then that can be quite overwhelming. It's sometimes a good idea to look through the comments that have likes, that other learners have sort of put a tag to, so that you can see, well, actually, if 10 other learners think that's really good, then I'll just look at those. Or it could be that you just skim through and look at one or two. So I'm just getting rid of Jonathan there again. Thank you, Jonathan. So as I said, I think it's a question of learning, of sort of using the media in a way that suits you best. A lot of learners don't even use the social media. They think they can just go and use the materials, work their way through them, and don't feel the need to interact with other learners. And actually that's perfectly valid. If you register for a formal online course, you would probably like to have a tutor, and so it's the tutor who will support you as you learn. And some students on these courses prefer not to engage with other students for whatever reason. Perhaps they simply don't have the time. So I hope that answers your question. And a related question is the next one, which is saying about should we be using the comment facility, and should we be making a comment every time the option is available? And should we be going back to see later comments once we've sort of done the next part of the course? Again, as I said previously, I think that's entirely up to you. These facilities are available for you, and a lot of learners get a lot of satisfaction from engaging with other learners, share ideas, and so that can be really handy. But other people just prefer to look at the materials and get a sense of what they mean and work through them themselves. So I would use it in a way that you feel fit, and I certainly wouldn't suggest you spend all your time looking at the comments and so that you get distracted. The main focus is on the materials. Look through the materials, see what other learners have said. There may be something really helpful. If you have a problem or a question, you can post. Jonathan and I are acting as moderators on this MOOC. So we're trying to pick up some of the comments that you've made as learners and trying to answer any questions. So it can be a really good way of just checking your understanding of things, but you don't need to do that. So don't feel obliged if it's not your cup of tea. So the next section we'll be looking at is sort of how the MOOC can develop your skills. And there we go, Jonathan there. When he facilitated last week, he just suggested that people commented on things that interested them, and yeah, that's a really good way of doing it. I think it's just using the comment facility in a way that suits your learning. So as I said, coming on to the next section, there's now looking at developing your skills. So one of the questions here was, I've found this very course interesting, well thank you, is one of the questions that this person asked is how to sort of scan and skim required material quickly without wasting too much time. That is a skill that is very difficult to pick up, and I think if you are new to learning, whether online or in any environment, then you really sort of need to just develop that as you go on. I think when you start learning, certainly in my own experience, I used to read everything, you know, from the sort of the first capital letter at the start of the sentence right through to the last full stop, and I would read and take notes. And then as you go on, you start to think, well, actually, I know that already, or that's the thing that's most interesting, and I think you just pick that skill up. There will be guidance if you look, say at, you know, on Google. You might want to look at note taking, for example. And I mentioned our sort of sister site, OpenLearn, earlier, which is a free resource based on Open University materials. And there is a course there, a free course on note taking. So you might find that helpful as a way of identifying the key features of the material that you're reading through. So I'll just come on to the next question. We're sort of getting through this quite quickly. So the next one is this learner asks, if we are looking at recently published papers, whether online or in paper form, what is a good way to assess reliability of new data and opinions? Again, that is a very difficult skill. It's something you acquire as you sort of get more used to learning. I mean, hopefully within this MOOC that we have vetted all the materials, and that although we want you to question things and comment on them, that they should be reasonably reliable. So one of the ways you can do that actually is to look at where the information comes from. If it's what can be seen as a reliable source, so for example, an established university, an established research centre, you know, somewhere like the World Bank and that sort of thing, then you can have at least some idea that you can sort of have a sense that the research that they've done is fairly valid and that sort of thing. There is actually a course that's been developed by the Open University, which is again going out on our OpenLearn platform, all about information literacy. And I think Jonathan, my colleague, has been involved in that, so he might well put some information up there. I'll be grateful if you could, please, Jonathan. because that's something if you are particularly interested that it may be worth doing. And it's often referred to as digital and information literacy, and it's a way of getting you to look at the source of the sort of information you're looking at, who's written it, the types of information they draw from, the date as well. It may be that something's 10 years old is not as reliable as something that's recent. So there are ways of doing this, and there is material available online now which will help you. As I said, the Open University is developing a course on OpenLearn, but also you may find that there are other things. I would just Google digital information literacy and you may find something. So the next question is, I'd like to ask if you'd be able to access online articles in academic journals, saying that most universities give students a code to access journals online, and wonders if the Open University does the same. No, we don't, not on this MOOC. If you are a registered Open University student, then you have access to a library. We have a sort of a physical library here where I'm based in Milton Keynes in England, and we also have a very large online library. But in terms of access for students on FutureLearn, then no, we don't. But there are ways of finding materials online. So an obvious place is something like Google Scholar. So you can have a look at Google Scholar, type an area that you're interested in, and a lot of people, researchers now, publish their research papers in places like Google Scholar. And we have a whole movement now called Open Access. So the Open University has something called the Open Research Observatory. I hope that's right, Jonathan, I think. Oh, no, sorry, Open Research Online. So you can find some of the articles there that Open University researchers have published. But it's worth looking for that in general. So open access journals, say via Google, and you can actually find ones that are published. You could be able to look at what sort of articles are available there. And as I said, these are often articles that are published in very reputable journals. So in relation to the previous question about assessing where that information came from, then don't be too worried. They are genuinely reputable. So have a go and see what you find. So I'll just see what Jonathan said here. So have a look at the next one, which relates to assessment and feedback. So one person says, I have only one doubt. Do we have any feedback at the end of the first week? So we're now coming to the end of the second week, and as I'm sure you'll have noticed, there is no feedback on this particular course. Again, it varies a lot. On FutureLearn, most of the MOOCs do not have any form of assessment or feedback, but that does vary on different MOOCs. So for example, on our badged open courses that we have on OpenLearn, then they are 8-week course. There are formative tests every week and then summative tests. So again, it depends a lot on the course, but on this particular course, no, we don't. So the next question is, I found the course interesting and inspiring. Well, thank you. And can the progress of the learner be measured? Well, in order to get the certificate of participation at the end of the course, then your progress on the course is measured in the sense that you have to demonstrate that you have looked at each part of the course in order to qualify for that. So we are measuring your performance in that way. As I said, we don't have assessment and feedback on this particular course, so we won't measure it in other ways. But we do know, for example, how many learners sign up for the MOOC, how many contribute through comments each week, how many complete the end of the sort of the 2-week course, and then how many want to for a statement of patient. So we do measure you in that way. I hope that's answered your question. So the next one is, how online learning models grant quality in assessment, or how would it be possible to conduct a proper evaluation assessment, verify the identity of the enrolled students, and at the same time keep their privacy? This is a really interesting point that you've made, and it's something that Jonathan and I personally are very interested in, and something we're trying to do research on. So one of the things, say for example on the MOOC, is that there is no particular assessment and feedback. But where there is, then one of the issues is that and particularly where in some universities they're now giving credit for MOOCs, and so in those cases they do need to know who that person is, because otherwise they could be giving credit, university credit in this case, for someone who is not who they claim to be. So in those cases, it is the case that the pastor registered information about themselves. It may even be that they have to submit something physically. What we have at the Open University in terms of our, say, badged open courses is that we have the I suppose we don't necessarily know who the person is, but because it's not credit bearing, in other words, they can't claim any form of university credit, then it's not as important to know who people are as if they are gaining credit. And if you are a registered student at the Open University, then we do need to find out who you are. So in terms of privacy, I suppose we do invade your privacy to some extent, but no more than at any other university. And certainly, as you'll have found out from registering on this MOOC, you can keep your own private information very much to yourself and still engage and take part. So I hope that answers your question. So the next one is looking at moving on. So hopefully, we've done most of these questions, and then we'll look at this, the final, in the last sort of 5 minutes, we'll look at moving on. So the next question is, what advice would you give online learners who may be interested in doing a course, know they are capable to start out, but a bit uncertain if they can maintain it to the end successfully? I would say you give it a go. What the MOOCs are really good at is having a go at seeing if you can keep sort of your momentum going on a course. So this is 2 weeks. It's fairly easy. You can sort of keep the subject matter is relatively simple, and you can see if you can get going. And then what you might try is, say, an 8-week course, and then something even longer. So the MOOCs vary in length, and you can have a go at seeing to what extent you understand the materials, you perhaps can keep going with your studies, and can sort of keep up with the momentum of the course. And once you've tried with a short course, you can keep going and try longer ones. So it's really a question of keeping going, and I think it is important to get to the end, because otherwise you won't really know if you can keep studying for that long unless you try. And obviously once you get onto formal registered courses online, then they are much longer, and obviously all the requirements are greater. So these MOOCs are quite a nice introduction, and a gentle introduction. So I'll look at the next question, which is, are there free bachelor's degrees online? Because I'd love to study computer science. Well, although some universities offer credit for some of the MOOCs, it's unlikely you will get very much, perhaps 10 credit points out of 360 for a degree. So I'm afraid the short answer for that is no. But studying some of the MOOCs may help you in getting on the courses that you choose to register for. So sorry about that. And the final question is, this is a specific one, but it may have relevance to everyone. I'm starting the BA Hons Criminology and Law at the end of the month, and my question is there anything specific that will be able to from this course and apply to my degree? And I think that relates really nicely to the previous question. So the ability to keep studying, to follow the course sort of calendar, follow the material, engage with other students, get a sense of actually what it's like to study online. This is what this course has been developed for, and I think it will give you a really good insight to what it's like to study more formally in an online environment. So I'm just going to check the time now, because I think we're more or less. So it's 28 minutes past 7. I just want to thank you all for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast. There's not been too many joining face to face. I can see 10 of you out there, so I'll do a little wave to you. But if you're catching up with this as a recording, then I do hope you find it helpful, and I'll be doing my moderating on the course in general. So if you have any more questions, then do post them up on the sort of the step that relates to this broadcast, or also at the end of the course in the sort of final comments, and I'm sure that I'll be able to catch up with you. So anyhow, so I've enjoyed it. It's not been quite as traumatic as I thought, and I think we've got through all the questions that I intended to. So thank you very much for coming, those of you who've joined me live, and for those who catch up on the video, I hope you find this really helpful, and well done for getting so far in this MOOC, and good luck in your future MOOC studies or your formal studies. Thank you very much. Goodbye.